Hey buddy, watch this.
Hello, Regis Kilbin is the name, and Hearthstone is the game, and this is my Knights of the Frozen Throne budget mid-range hunter deck. Now, before I get into this deck, I do want to just give you a brief overview of what it means to me to be a budget deck, and specifically, in Knights of the Frozen Throne, that means I'm trying to keep this deck list under 800 arcane dust, but with a Death Knight hero card, specifically, of course, with Hunter, that is Deathstalker Rexxar. And the reason I'm willing to include a legendary in a budget deck, which I typically wouldn't do because I like to keep my budget decks legitimately budget decks, that's because with the single player mode in Knights of the Frozen Throne, essentially everybody gets access to one Death Knight hero card randomly for free. So if you didn't get Deathstalker Rexxar, this might not be the perfect budget deck for you, although you could clearly just remove Deathstalker Rexxar, add in a second Savannah High main, and still have a pretty budget list that would still be very competitive. But if you're somebody who got Deathstalker Rexxar and you're looking to build a hunter list that works with Deathstalker Rexxar and is still competitive on the ranked ladder, then this is exactly the right kind of list for you. Now, as it is with any budget deck, it's not going to be the kind of deck that carries you all the way to legend ranks. That's really difficult to do on a very strict budget. It can be done for free-to-play players, but not always with an 800 arcane dust deck, particularly if you're somebody who's new to the game or still learning or still growing in competitive Hearthstone. So this deck is really designed more for ranks like 25 to 15, maybe up to rank 10 if you're super competitive and you really learn the list and you're a great Hearthstone player. But beyond that, you're going to start struggling and playing top tier decks that are really well refined and of course also played by good players. So it's going to be difficult to rank up much farther than that. Another thing I'd like to highlight about this deck list and my budget decks in general this time around is that I am giving a slight emphasis towards Knights of the Frozen Throne cards in this list because I assume if you're coming to the game, if you're building a collection right now, if you're trying to play budget decks, you're probably opening Knights of the Frozen Throne packs more than anything else, so you'll see occasionally a few more Knights of the Frozen Throne cards in this list than you might otherwise expect, even if there are some non-Frozen Throne cards that also seem suitable for the list. I'm not making bad substitutions just to get Frozen Throne cards in there, but I am putting cards like, for instance, Bear Shark in this list because it's a great budget mid-range hunter card that came out in Frozen Throne. So all that said, there are essentially a few more parts to this video. Up first, I'm going to go through the deck list in a little bit more detail. Then I'm going to jump into some upgrades for this deck list. And then finally, I'm going to jump into some gameplay where you can actually see this deck in action. And there's going to be a little bit of a legend or a key down in the description below where you can find some quick links to any of those given points to help you navigate this video more quickly. If you don't care about one aspect or another, for instance, if you want to jump right into the gameplay, go look below for a link to the gameplay and it'll take you right there. But all that said, let's jump into the deck list first. Okay, so for the budget mid-range hunter, I think I'd like to look at the curve first. As is the case with most mid-range style decks, essentially it's got a fairly smooth curve with some strong early game options, a lot of stuff in the 3 to 4 mana cost range, and then also a few kind of heavy hitting cards from 5 to 6. Usually mid-range decks will top out around 6 or 7 mana, somewhere around there, with some really finisher style cards or just super value cards that give you the meat to win the game if it tends to run a little longer, but also just a really smooth curve that helps you curve out every single turn with strong onboard minions and often applying a ton of pressure with occasionally some removal options as well. And this deck meets those needs exactly. It's precisely what you're looking for in a mid-range style deck. So as far as cards that are most notable, of course, I think you have to start with Deathstalker Rexxar here. Essentially, this is the perfect game-ending kind of card for a list like this because Hunter has a problem with card draw typically. You know, once you play out on curve and you play all your minions, if you didn't win the game, you usually don't have efficient enough card draw to keep bringing new resources into your hand to continue playing. You just run out of gas and your opponent outvalues you and overwhelms you. But Deathstalker Rexxar essentially, it can give you a nice swing turn where you kill your opponent's board thanks to its Battle Cry AoE effect, but then also it gives you essentially a card draw card every time with its hero power. You just get to create a new beast, and then you're drawing a card every turn, and you're creating a beast every turn, and often those beasts are very powerful, so it means you can still apply a ton of value and a ton of pressure to the board any given turn after you play Deathstalker Rexar. So you can find charge minions to help you find a win if your opponent's low. You can play super high value minions if you need to really contest the board with value. So depending on the kind of matchup, it really gives you the flexibility and the answers necessary to pull out games that would otherwise seem totally lost, and that's what makes Deathstalker Rexar such a cool card. Not to mention, of course, he's just one of the most fun cards in the game because Build-A-Beast is a crazy fun hero power. Beyond that, what you're seeing in this list is a lot of early one-drops. Some are board-based. Jeweled Macaw is a little bit more value or resource generation based, but getting a strong one-drop on the board is very powerful because of combo cards like all of the 2-drops in this deck, Scavenging Hyena, Fallen Sun Cleric, and Crackling Razor Maw essentially each help you build on that strong turn 1 opener. So you should always be mulliganing for those 1-drops and those 2-drops to get off to strong starts in this deck. You can't just keep Deathstalker Rexar and Houndmaster and Savannah Highmane because they're good cards. You absolutely have to mulligan for your curve. Keep the 1-drops. If you see a 1-2, keep the 2-drop and build on that really strong early game base. There is Acidic Swamp Ooze in here. It's the only 2-drop that's not helping you build on a board, but this is just a great tech card. There's a lot of weapons in the meta at any given time. This isn't perfect against the Druid version of Hearthstone we're seeing in Frozen Throne, but there are still a ton of Pirates and Paladins out there, and this card can do a lot of work as a basic free card, so it's a good inclusion to have here. For 3-drops, you've essentially got a lot of different options, cards that do different things, some of which help you build the board with Bear Shark and Animal Companion. Kill Command and Deadly Shot can be removal. Kill Command can also, of course, be a game-ending burst of damage to your opponent's face. And then you've got some charging minions as well. Unleash the Hound is a little bit more control-based, typically, where you might want to trade into some token stuff that your opponent has. But also, it can just be damage. They play 5 minions, that's 5 charging damage for 3 mana, which isn't too bad. And then you've also got the Wolf Rider, which, again, can be removal and can be damage. You see that flexible theme in all your 3-drops here, and frankly, across the deck, because a mid-range deck, sometimes it wins via applying pressure and killing your opponent. Other times it wins via contesting an aggressive deck's early start and just outvaluing them. And these cards essentially give you that flexibility to do whichever of those things that you might need. Moving on, you just have more sort of value cards. Houndmaster's great for building a board. Spellbreaker's perfect for pushing through taunts or removing some value from your opponent. Scalebane and Tundra Rhino can both do board building sorts of things. Playing that Tundra Rhino, for instance, into a Savannah Highmane on 6 is absolutely absurd, but of course there are other great targets for Tundra Rhino, in particular with Deathstalker Rexar Build-A-Beast hero power. Sometimes if you can stick that Tundra Rhino and get a crazy Build-A-Beast, that can be just a game-winning kind of play. So that's the list in total. It's actually fairly similar to what you'd see from a non-budget mid-range list. A few key substitutions here and there where you need to run some cheaper cards to keep it under that dust threshold that's so important to me, but ultimately not that different than what you'd expect to see, and that's why this is a really strong budget sort of list. But now what I'd like to talk about is some upgrades. I know you guys love seeing upgrades, in particular for my budget decks. So when it comes to upgrades for a budget mid-range hunter deck, I'm going to kind of take a cop-out here and simply just tell you should probably find a real mid-range hunter deck and compare the differences. There aren't going to be that many depending upon how the shape of the meta is currently. Budget mid-range decks can be built a little bit, or excuse me, mid-range hunter decks can be built a little bit differently. So, I mean, really, if you're looking to upgrade this, it's probably only going to take something like 5 cards to replace to turn this into a real mid-range list. And I think you should just go and whenever you're watching this, whether it's the day it's released or a month down the road or a year down the road, if you just go look at the latest version of a mid-range hunter that's being played competitively, and presumably there will be one, then you should find the cards you need to replace and substitute, and the cards that you might already have in your collection, or cards that are cheap or accessible, or cards you want to play with, and just slot those in. And as far as which cards to replace, I mean, it should be fairly easy to determine. I mean, look for cards that are of the same mana cost, or that accomplish the same kinds of goals. For instance, Bear Shark is just a minion that's played out. You wouldn't want to replace this necessarily with a removal spell, because they do different things. But if it's another value 3-drop, for instance, Rat Pack might be the replacement for Bear Shark in this deck. If you eventually craft a Rat Pack, or it looks like Rat Pack is going to be a better version of the card, that's the swap that you would make. And of course, also you should look for the basic cards in this list. When I say basic, I mean classic set cards that don't have they're totally free. They don't have a dust cost. So Acidic Swamp Ooze, Wolf Rider, those are great kinds of replacements in this deck. Kill Command and Deadly Shot are actually pretty good despite being basic cards, as is Animal Companion, so you might not want to replace those. But I think the most optimal targets are Acidic Swamp Ooze, certainly, and the Wolf Rider here as easy replacements. As far as like specific cards that are typically really, really strong in Mid-Range Hunter, I'll make a few recommendations. Kindly Grandmother, Eaglehorn Bow is always really good. A second Savannah Highmane, you almost can't go wrong there. That's historically been an amazing card. Infested Wolf is fantastic. And then if you're looking to put in some tech cards, you could do things like a Hungry Crab or a Galaka Crawler. Those work particularly well in Hunter because they're actually beasts, and it doesn't hurt that much just to play them on curve because you have so many different beast synergies. Plus, of course, they give you the tech answers, but those can be expensive cards to craft in some ways, so those are risky for some players. But depending on the meta, those could be great fits for this list as well. So that's it for upgrades, guys. What I'd like to do now, I think, is just go ahead and jump into some gameplay of this budget mid-range hunter. So guys, as I jump into this gameplay, I do actually want to make a really important note. I'm currently at rank 9 in Hearthstone, and this is actually day 2 of a new season. This is September 2nd when I'm recording this video. So rank 9 right now is hyper competitive. These are people who are ahead of the curve, ranking up on their way to Legend. I finished at Legend last month, and essentially I got dropped at the top of the pile right when you reset the ladder, right at rank 15, and I actually had a great win streak up to rank 9 right here. So this is well beyond the scope of what this deck is designed to do. This deck, as I mentioned earlier in the video, is really designed more for play from ranks 25 to 15 for budget kinds of players. And currently we're well beyond rank 15. Even at the end of the season, rank 15 would be suitable for this deck. But this is the very, very beginning of the season. So this is about as good as rank 9 ever gets. So in other words, it might be a little bit challenging as we move through these games. We're going to be playing refined decks and fantastic players. So that said, I don't re-record. If I lose every game, we lose every game. That doesn't necessarily mean the deck is bad, though. I want to warn you that we can still play the deck, we can still learn the deck, we can still have some successes, even if we don't win games. It's not a sign that the deck is terrible and you're going to fail with it. We're playing far beyond the deck's intention. Now, as far as mulligan decisions there, clearly you saw me keep our 1-drops and pass back the Unleash the Hounds, because that's a reactive card in the early game. We're absolutely always looking for proactive cards that we can play out on curve, cards that allow us to do things, get off to quick starts, and that's why we kept the 2 1-drops. As far as the decision to coin out the double 1-drops, it's because I wanted to set up this play. Against Rogue, it can be really, really challenging because they do have things like Eviscerate and Backstab. So there's a chance this doesn't work because it just gets backstabbed right. But you still kind of sometimes need to try. And he got off to a fantastic start. I mean, just brutally good. Is about as good as could possibly be. As far as our deck is concerned. Because now we're sort of stuck without anything to do. And we don't have any proactive cards to play. These are all board-based builders or sort of answer cards. These 3 in particular are answer-based cards. It's going to be really difficult to find a win here. I think we might just have to go ahead and Deadly Shot this. Clearly, Deadly Shot's intended for much larger targets. But since we don't have any other way to spend our mana, we kind of just have to go for it and hope he doesn't have any other ways to develop. And we maybe hit a couple beasts here, or maybe he goes wide and we can Unleash the Hounds. A silence target would be fine. Something that allows us to start building on this. That's an interesting play. I do not know what kind of deck we're playing against here, but I like it. So Jeweled Macaw is actually fairly good. It allows me to do something. We'd had this last turn, we'd be in great shape. Hopefully we get a playable minion. We didn't. So again, we're kind of stuck here. We can actually Unleash the Hounds and hope that one of our Hounds will survive into a Houndmaster next turn. In other words, Unleash and trade one in. And hopefully he doesn't feel like trading the 5/4 minion into one of these. And essentially we leave a 1/1 behind to capitalize on it with the Houndmaster. It's very unlikely. I think he probably will have some other way to clear this, a Fan of Knives or another Backstab or another SI7 agent. So he'll probably still get to go 5 to face with the Naga and clear our board. Because it is really important against Hunters to keep beasts off the board, right? But even worst case... Oh, he's actually just going to trade. Wow. Smart plays, I think. I think smart plays at the end of the day. Because again, see, it just left us without anything to do here. It bought me some time, though, and time is actually quite valuable. This is a 6-mana play that we can't do yet, but we might just go ahead and play the Spellbreaker here. 4 tempo, it's just the only body we have. Our curve has felt a little awkward here. But this allows me to have a turn 6 play, and this is a turn 7 play, of course. So he'll use the weapon, most likely to clear here, unless he has some other answer. Woo, that is brutally good. Oh boy. I like this guy's deck. This is a cool Pirate Rogue, a weapon Pirate Rogue. I built something similar, but he's getting off to a much better start with it than we ever did. That's for sure. And this is going to put us in another rough spot, but we don't have a choice. Hopefully we can just, you know, keep up enough to make a strong Volcanosaur play, or maybe Deathstalker Rexar buys us out if these things get chipped down a little bit somehow. It doesn't seem likely, but essentially ever since he answered our Scavenging Hyena on 2, we were so far behind that it was going to be tough to win. Doomerang? Can't be a Doomerang yet. Just Eviscerate? Okay. That's really good. I think we're dead here, right? Looks like 15, 25. Yeah, we're just dead. Oh, at least it ended mercilessly. I mean, quickly. Like, he didn't have to drag it out, right? We just got wrecked quickly. I like that deck a lot. That was really fun. So that game would have looked a lot different if he hadn't had a Backstab, perhaps, right? Because the Backstab SI agent is just ridiculous at that point. And essentially, if he'd had to face tank the 2/1 or not face tanked it, we would have had a couple minions out. We wouldn't be able to stay a little bit farther ahead. But unfortunately for us, we just got all of our sort of reactive cards before we needed them, and then got our like Crackling Razor Maul after we needed it. So it left us in a bit of a tough spot. But I like that guy's deck a lot. That was really cool to see regardless. So clearly this hand is far too expensive. This is an okay opener though, so we'll keep the 1-drop and the 2-drop. As we mentioned in the deck part of the video here, you know, if you see something like this, it's certainly worth keeping in a mulligan, just because you know you're going to get off to a fairly decent start. Man, we got our sort of reactive 4-drops again. Or not really reactive, but conditional 4-drops, I should say. And that's a great start again against us. Alley Cat's certainly a better 1-drop here, because it makes it much more likely that one of them lives to set up the buff with the Fallen Sun Cleric. We could arguably coin into the Jeweled Macaw here, too. But then that leaves us without a 3-drop turn. Right now, we think we can perhaps coin out a Houndmaster on turn 3, or a Spellbreaker if needed. So keeping the coin here provides a little bit of flexibility. We'll see. I mean, I think we just want to see Hero Power here. Rockpool Hunter's much, much worse for us, because it doesn't allow for the trade after the Fallen Sun Cleric onto the what will now be a 1/2 minion, right? If you Rockpooled it, it would go to 3 health, so that's much, much better to see. This now gives me essentially 2 favorable trades on board against that. And if he's smart, he'll kill the Tabby Cat here, because he should know that we have beast synergies. He may not really feel like resolving either, though, depending on what he plays. For instance, like this, he gets a little bit punished here. We have some options. We could just Animal Companion, but I do actually think the Houndmaster here is still right. Essentially, we can ensure that it's going to survive. We'll test Noble Sacrifice. I'm 99% sure that's just a redemption, because it's so good on this, right? It just comes back as it is. You get another 1-mana Righteous Protector, essentially. Immortality. But we'll see. If it's Noble Sacrifice, that'll tell us a lot. This dies to the trade no matter what here. Okay, Noble Sacrifice, cool. That's actually, I think, better for me. So we're going to buff this, and it's going to go to 3 health, right? Which is interesting, because that's 3 damage. So the question is, should we go ahead and take the trade on the Divine Shield? And I think the answer has to be yes, just simply because the card Rowling Blade exists. It does make like Consecration way better, but that's not something they typically run right now, so... Okay, so we basically saved a +1/+1 there, right? By popping that early. The damage would have worked out the same, he still could have done 3 damage. He'd still have the exact same board state, but instead we end up with a 1/1 on board instead of a 2/2, so a fairly important distinction there. I think we'll start with the Macaw, and if we get an interesting playable beast, we might save the Animal Companion. But probably going to end up Animal Companioning here, no matter what. Oh, interesting. Misha would be nice at this point. Well, Huffer's not ideal, but keeping minions off the board against Paladin's good, and 1 health is not a particularly magic number against Paladin, so he may have to still just face tank this with the Rallying Blade. Finja is an issue, but not with Deadly Shot! This is such a good answer to Finja. One of the few cards in the game that really answers Finja cleanly. It's great news. We just killed a very powerful turn for him. Especially if he has like a Spike-Rid Steed in hand where he was going to buff that Finja up. We would have had so much trouble getting around that. We do have a great answer to Spike-Rid Steed though with Spellbreaker, so that's nice. We're in an okay spot right now. This is still a very losable game, but we're slightly ahead, which is nice. We might have to Tundra Rhino here. Ooh, stealth. Tundra Rhino got a lot worse then. Ooh, I wish we could play both these together, man. I think we'll just have to Animal Companion. If it's a Huffer, we'll definitely play the Scavenging Hyena. Huffer is one... Even if it's a Misha, I guess Leok is the only card we don't maybe play the Hyena. Perhaps we have to play the Hyena even then, just to stay on curve. But certainly Huffer and Misha are the best targets here. Okay. So we know he can summon at least 1 Murloc, so we know this is going to 2 attack. He theoretically trades the Megasaur in here. This goes to 3 health. We know this can go to 2. We could buff this to 4 health if we took a bad trade right now. But I don't think it's worth it. This beast on board still has a lot of value. And that Misha is great for a Hadronox if we ever get that far. I don't know if the game will last that long, but it's cool that we actually do have a taunt. Otherwise we wouldn't have one. It's not a great play, right? It's still just a 9 mana 3/7 that summons just a 4/4, but it's something. Okay, so you did at least have to take some damage here. So he did have a couple Murlocs, so we made the right... And he actually had the Rallying Blade. It only went to 3, though. We might have actually just been better off taking the bad trade. Who knows? Tundra Rhino into Crackling Razor Maw is good. A Divine Shield would be pretty sick. Man, we could just go 5 to face. I was thinking we might need to resolve the Murloc Tidecaller, but with a Spellbreaker in hand, putting him at 9 is not too bad. Yes, he'd have to clear these, so he wouldn't... I mean, he has, 9 damage on board, but not really. Let's just see what Crackling Razor Maw options we get. That could certainly influence it. Oh, wow, Wind Fury is even more damage. Yeah, we're just going to go face, I think. That's too much damage. Our hero power will win us the game eventually at this rate. And he still has to kill this stuff. I mean, he has some great trades, right? 2-1 here. Probably weapons and trades here. He might not even have to weapon. He might... Oh my god! Tyrion. So thankfully we actually do have... Oh, he's taking some face damage again, too. I love it. That's perfect for us. So we'll just Spellbreaker hero power here. We'll probably even throw down the Razor Maw just because it's another body to play. He'll have to take some bad trades. Which essentially just buys me time, right? If he's taking bad trades... He's not killing me, which means I have more time to hero power, essentially, so... Hadronox is fine if we don't get anything... Well, actually, no, we have to hero power. We can't even play Hadronox. Ooh, that's a problem. Oh, no, it doesn't have lifesteal, so it's actually not... Oh, that has lifesteal, though. Shoot. Kill command is sort of important here, guys. Oh boy. Kill command is sort of important here. What else? Ironbeak Owl would be really, really clutch. Clutch Mother Zavas is sort of garbage. So he has 12, 13, 14, 16 damage. He's not going to kill me next turn, but he's going to heal for 2. Which puts him up to 3 again, essentially. Which is changing the math on our hero power a lot. And I'm not going to attack for him, right? Because that gives him an extra 2 heal faster, essentially. Lifesteal was the one thing we didn't consider when going down this hero power line. So this might be very... Oh my goodness. So we sort of have to top deck like a kill command here, I think. Have to top deck, because we're going to be dead to the board next turn. So. Oh boy. Looks like we lose, guys. That's 12 damage, 18, 19, 21, 22. That is tough. That's really, really tough. Oh. No! That's so tough. I don't really think we misplayed at all. Maybe silencing the Tyrion was actually a misplay, but we didn't have any clue that he was going to end up playing 3 more Divine Shield taunts. So it seemed like that was a pretty good way to just develop the board and push through. But 1 damage off, guys. I don't think we missed a damage anywhere that I'm aware of. So, oh, whoa, how did I end up on a Druid deck there? That's tough, man. That's tough. Ugh. You can see, though, like, a budget deck's just, like, 1 or 2 cards away from being, perhaps, really, really good there. We almost beat what was obviously a well-refined Paladin deck. That's tough, guys. I'm sad about that loss. That was something. I think that was still the right decision to go face with the Tundra Rhinos, because we just put him on essentially having exactly Wicker Flame Burn Bristle, as it turns out. Which is exactly what he had, unfortunately for us. But that's a game you win probably 9 times out of 10 at that point. We just love this card today, don't we, guys? Jeez. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and coin all these out here. And the reason for that is because our deck has a lot of 3-drops. And this is not a perfect 4-drop. You might remember in a previous game, I sort of held the coin because I knew the Houndmaster was coming, and that was going to be a very powerful play when it happened. In fact, that was probably the last game. I think it was against the Paladin. But in this scenario, just getting out wide against the Druid before turn 5 can be really powerful, and we're likely to hit a 3-drop of some sort because there's so many in this deck. So, that's the idea here. We don't yet know exactly what kind of Druid this is, but it looks like a Jade Slower Druid, because Token would have certainly had some more plays by now. Kill Commanding Face here won't feel great. We'd much rather see a Bear Shark or an Animal Companion, something to play the board. Wolf Rider is actually okay. Swipe becomes a major concern at this point, but we kind of just have to hope he doesn't hit it. And that's that's an important note actually a lot for budget decks in general, is that sometimes when you have worse cards, so he does have it, unfortunately. Blech. Sometimes when you have worse cards, you sort of have to play to your outs. Because, oh, this would have been 1,000 times better last turn. At least 1,000 times better. Because it's not a swipe target. He can't hit it with swipe. If we'd drawn those cards in the opposite order, we would be in a great spot right now. We're in an average spot anyway, but we'd be in an amazing spot. What is that going to be, a Wild Growth, maybe? I think he was thinking about wrathing this, but he can't wrath it. So I'm not really sure. A lot of damage in hand and some ability to push through taunts, which is nice. Scalebane's a solid turn 5 play. Putting this thing on even higher health total when he can't attack it is a fantastic combo. Innervate into a Mire Keeper. Oh, interesting. So he's going to have the trade set up here. That's actually a very strong, that's a powerful play. Because suddenly he threatens my Bear Shark a lot more. Even though it gets the buff, it still dies to the trade. Hopefully this means he can't kill the Scalebane, though. Some more damage in hand. He's at 15. We'll see how much we can smork here. This plus this is 7 damage to the face next turn if this lives. Ultimate Infestation is always a concern. It's Druid. Right now, it's obscene. I have a feeling this might be another game where we get really, really close and can't quite reach it. But those are the sorts of games that you expect to win quite handily at higher ranks. Yeah, I think this is the time. I think we have to go for this now. And this is worth almost as much damage here as the hero power, but it also sticks a body on board that can get to attack again, essentially. Especially, wow, okay. So he probably takes this trade, but can he kill the other two things is the question. Swipe, great answer. Ultimate Infestation is very strong as always. Notice the eye roll. He just gets 5 armor basically for free there. But we have, again, we have so much damage. We can probably just overwhelm this guy. This is 4 more. This looks like it's going to live unless he can innervate a Wrath, which would be incredibly frustrating. But certainly not the first time I've seen such a play. We're going to try to squeeze out every point of damage we can here because we do have the kill command in hand for reach. This is a guaranteed 7 damage play next turn, so there's a chance we just win right here. He might have Earthen Scales. We'll see, I guess. Taunts won't help him here. This is just direct damage. Looks like we got it, boys. Woo! Barely, but we got it. Barely beating the druids, guys. Oh, he's salty too. That's sad. He had a great turn. I mean, he got the ultimate infestation off. He got a lot of ramp out. That was just barely scraped by on that one, but it's a good win, guys. That's a really, really nice win. As you can see, budget hunter. We haven't even seen Deathstalker Rexar, by the way, so it's not like that's carrying us. And in fact, a lot of the times that's more of a last resort than sort of a power play. Is this the same guy? I don't think so. I think he was ranked 10, so it couldn't be. Much more of a last resort than a power play, so good 1-2. Probably the best 1-2 in the game. So that's nice. We'll certainly keep that in the mulligan. Not the strongest 3-drop. Not the strongest 3-drop. Did some work last time, got us 3 damage, which ended up being very, very clutch. But anyway, Deathstalker Rexar is not why we're winning games. It's not the legendary. This is an 800 dust deck winning games at rank 9, which again, rank 9 may not sound like much, but this is day 2. As you'll notice, everybody on my friends list is like 17, 18, 19, 20. It's day 2. Rank 9 right now is all legend guys, as you can see from the card back. Alright. Do we try to hit the Razor Maw here for like poisonous, or do we try to hit the Scavenging Hyena and just go to 4 health and 6 attack? Next turn we could actually use the Wolf Rider to trade into the other taunt, which he's probably not expecting. I think we just go for the Hyena here. Now that will not buff the Hyena, but Mark of Yasharaj doesn't threaten this. Mark of Yasharaj would still die to the Hyena. If he Mark of Yasharages it, we'll have to trade in a Hyena. Maybe we can do like Crackling Razor Maw for a Divine Shield or something and then make the trade. So we're looking for like Divine Shield, or even +3 health would probably be fine. I think we'll have to Razor Maw. 1 drop would be ideal. No. I guess we don't even really have to do this. We could just play a 3-drop and trade, but then it goes to 1 health and it dies to so many things. I think I want to do... This takes it to 2 health. It wouldn't die to Patches, but it would die to Patches hero power. What if I hit like really garbage cards here though? What if I hit Taunt or Stealth? If I could attack and then stealth, that would be fine, but I think I'd rather it just have more health. I mean, there's +1/+1, +3 health. Divine Shield. Wind Fury would actually still be really clutch because it would give us so much damage. But I would still be really sad about Patches. So let's just try this. I think, like I said before, you have to play to your outs sometimes. Play for your best possible outcomes. +3 health is certainly one of the better ones, so I'll take that. You can't always play the safest route, and he did have the Patches, so he might. No, it's not dead yet. Oh my God, it's just getting bigger. Guys, this just keeps getting bigger. I think we'll just Wolf Rider to take out a lot of damage and go face for 8, right? This will not buff the dude, but it will remove a ton of damage from the board. We could try to Misha Taunt, but Huffer would be a pretty low roll. So we'll just Wolf Rider here to take essentially 3 damage off the board and just get to go face for 8. And this is still a difficult thing for him to kill, probably. Swipe allows him to kill it, but it takes his entire turn. And Swipe isn't being run by all token druids right now. It's sort of in like a third of lists probably currently. So you may not have that. That's fine. Mark of Yasharaj still doesn't kill it. We might just do this again. We might just make the exact same play here. And then High Mane on 6. That's pretty funny. This goes up to 6 health, so after we trade, he'd have 4 damage on board. Could also just go face for, like, a ton of damage. But I don't think he's going to be able to kill this, guys. And it's not like we're not doing a ton of damage still. We would put him to 10. I don't think that changes the math a lot. But that's 5 damage available to him right now. Mark of Yasharaj does finally allow him to kill it. Oh, that does too. But he loses his entire board. Okay. So now we have a debate, unless we hit like... Ooh, that doesn't likely help me much. Animal Companion, we could easily kill the Fledgling. I think I'm going to have to let the Fledgling live, though. I think High Mane's just too strong. Because, like, even if he taunts in +3... if he gets Wind Fury and taunt, that's not a threat. If he gets Wind Fury and +3 health, we just go face for 10, and probably way more with the Animal Companion. So, I don't have to worry about it that much. It's not a game-ending play right now. So he goes down to 10, we have 8. There's a lot of cards here that win the game. This puts me 1 off of Leok, it wins it with Huffer. Deadly Shot's actually really good anyway. Let's see if we win first, and then we'll just win. Cool. Sick, guys. Sick. Winning games right now. I really wasn't sure we were going to win any games, to tell you the truth. Just because, you know, it's a budget deck. Hyper competitive, but nice. It was really good. We hit the great Hyena, and we won the game. We had to make some smart decisions about trading, at least. One last game, I think, guys. We've gotten a great feel for this deck already. Couple tough losses, couple really close losses, and a couple good wins against Druid, too. So it's always great beating the king of the ladder right now, which is Druid. We can keep a 2-drop here. We just really need to hit a good 1-drop. Right? It's really important. Unfortunately, we don't. Yet, at least. We'll see. Ah, we whiffed. Too many 3-drops. So this is tough now. Especially if he actually plays a 1-drop. This is going to be tough. If he plays the 1-3, we can still just drop a Razor Maul without getting it buffed. Plays a Rock Pool. This gets far less exciting. Oh, you're 1 turn off, Macaw. 1 turn off. I think we still play you, though. He still takes the trade into it. We probably just Bear Shark next turn. Maybe we get another 1-drop? No. Volcano Sword. Okay. This would have been a vastly different game if we hit this, into this, into this. Vastly different game. That's really good, because it makes our Bear Shark a dead target now. Misha's fantastic. Leok is garbage. Huffer is pretty bad. I might just have to play the Wolf Rider here and trade in. That gives me no great answer to a Murloc War Leader, unfortunately, though. But, you know, 2 out of 3 of the outcomes here are really bad. I guess, technically, Huffer's not any worse than a Wolf Rider, though. This is also just very passive. I guess this theoretically isn't too much different than a Wolf Rider either, other than it could be better later on. If I do this on turn 4, I still don't have a great line. Unless we hit another 2-drop or something. We're just in an awkward spot, guys. I guess we'll just play this and let him take the trade. This is fine against War Leader, because if he does get a War Leader down, this still kills the trades he makes. He'll trade this one in, for instance, and it will still trade into it, because it goes to 4. Then we have the Wolf Rider for the War Leader, so... Certainly behind, though. Certainly behind. That's kind of interesting. You could silence the War Leader, but then that's still a 3-3. That's actually a reasonable silence target. Plus, silence just has so much value against Paladin in general. I think we just have to, unfortunately, take this terrible play and hope he just whiffs. We need him to have, like, a hero power turn to get back in this game. It's going to be tough regardless, but this is such a strong turn 5. If he whiffs here, we could stabilize. That does not feel like a whiff. That feels like a very strong play. We'll see. We'll see. That's not bad. Unleash the Hounds. I don't even think that would really help much. This is clearly our only good play. Huffer might be okay if we can hit the right things with Crackling Razor Maul. I guess let's just see what happens. I don't think anything's awesome. +1/+1 puts it to 5 and 3. 5 health, 3 attack, so it would threaten the Tidecaller trade, but he'd have a great trade here, because these would both trade, and this would still be alive. But then how does he kill this if he takes that trade? Because otherwise this is a great trade. A +3 attack, though, doesn't really do much. +3 attack allows him to kill things even more easily, I think. None of those are great. We'll just take the most average value, I suppose. High Man on 6 in a Volcanosaur on 7's amazing, but will we have time for that to matter? Oh my god, probably not, based on this. So many good answers there. +3 health doesn't feel as good as it could have, to tell you the truth. I mean, it's a big board, but I would... Wind Fury probably would have been the best possible thing to just go face a bunch, but I just don't know how we ever get through this. I don't know how we handle this. The hope here is maybe he ignores it and we hit a huge taunt that somehow wins me the game, but... or maybe he makes bad trades into it and he should really just go face, but that's unlikely to happen. This is a fantastic player. He's ranked 9 already, so... he's gonna know what to do here. Oh my god. That is a heck of a play. Man, that Paladin curve. Jeez, I mean, he didn't technically have a perfect curve. That's what I was looking for last time. So that should be lethal, right? It's 11, 15, 21. Yeah, he has 21, 22. That's going to be a tough one to win. We whiffed our 1-drop. He hit the War Leaders on 3 and the Rock Pool buffs and just rolling. And he's a fast Murloc, too, that runs Grim Scale. Not even a more mid-range Paladin, so tough matchup for us either way. And that's maybe the best deck in the game right now, other than perhaps Druid, but really, really close. So I don't feel too bad about that loss. So, guys, as I mentioned, that was the last game. Actually, a nice little run. I think we saw some successful plays. You saw some nice decision-making, some important mulligan decisions. I think we actually didn't get to see Deathstalker Rexar at all, which is a tad sad. I didn't think about that. Maybe we should have tried to play a game till we found Rexar. But let me just tell you, as I mentioned previously before, Deathstalker Rexar is a last resort in that sort of environment, right? Like, often if you're playing Deathstalker Rexar, you're trying to do one of two things. One is maybe stabilize against an aggro deck or another mid-range deck, and you play big taunts off of Deathstalker Rexar. The other one is you're perhaps trying to outvalue a control deck, and then in that case you just look for big, probably Death Rattle, big stats, things that counter what your opponent does specifically, so trying to hit, like, you know, maybe 4 attack minions against Priest, for instance. So just a little bit of coaching there, since we didn't get to see it in action, because the meta's pretty fast, it's early season, everybody's laddering with really quick decks. So we never got an example. I don't even know if we ever drew Deathstalker Rexar. I think we saw him in the mulligan maybe at one time. But that's a little bit of coaching on the Build the Beast, in case you're curious. But as I said, like, this deck can live without Deathstalker Rexar. It's not here as a vehicle for the Death Knight. The Death Knight is merely a backup plan, a last resort, an out if your normal game plan, which is being a mid-range Hunter deck, which we played to fruition numerous times. If that plan fails, Deathstalker Rexar is the kind of card that can help you stabilize a late-game scenario. But here you go. So, all of that said, guys, I think that wraps it up for my budget Knights of the Frozen Throne mid-range Hunter deck. I think this was a great experience. I think if you play this deck, you'll find a lot of success, particularly at the ranks it's designed for, ranks 25 to 15, you should find a lot of wins if you play this deck well. So if you have any thoughts, comments, questions on the budget mid-range hunter deck, of course, please leave those in the comments below. But until then, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, game on.